I was going to do a couple of free videos, and I might as well just do one and connect them together fairly accurately. And I was going to respond to the trades being down bad and young tradies whining about being in the trades. And I was also going to do a video bashing Daryl Bassarab, aka Kane. And I decided to condense the two videos because Kane is like the prototype for the young tradies. So I'm going to talk about this very succinctly. So tradies whining about being tradies, young tradies. To be successful in the trades, you have to have a sense of agency and purpose, and most young people don't have that for the simple reason they've never been exposed to the idea of masculine autonomy. So they're not solutions-oriented individuals, and they don't want to seek solutions. They want to whine like females, because fundamentally they are possessed of the female spirit from their mother, and a lot of them came from two-parent homes, but their father was gay, and so it was very difficult for them to have any idea of the concept of masculinity. It's utterly foreign to them, and so they're only capable of being slaves. And this is a problem that I've seen. I've worked in training people, not in the trades, but specifically training younger people in the trades, almost 10 years now. And I've worked with some really great younger people lately. So I don't have a negative experience with younger people right now. I have an bad experience with middle-aged people right now. And that's where my negativity and vitriol is directed, not towards the youngins, as they call them now, the teenagers. But the point of the matter is, these guys are anomalies, and that's why I took them on in the first place, to help them along in a feminine world. And they don't misfits themselves, so that's the reason I decided to help them. But the point of the matter is, for the most part, this is the problem with tradies whining about having bad backs and their bodies just falling apart. And then immediately after, they talk about how they had to develop the strength on the job to do the job that they had. And, remember when I started, I couldn't lift this and lift that. Well, the bottom line is, you strengthen part of your body and let the other atrophy. So now your body is partially weak and partially strong. And if you weren't so lazy and dependent on others, you could strengthen your whole body. Johnny Groob has a whole channel on blue collar fitness, but you don't want to do that. You want to whine about it. And this is the natural order of things. This is what a few people were possessed of the proper spirit, and they formed the unions. And then the unions became a haven for retards and weaklings and faggots. And it's the same union or non-union in all fields. It's a haven for retards, faggots, and the drug addicted. And consequently, this adult baby syndrome can only lead to slavery, because you're always going to need somebody to take care of you, and you are not going to be able to pay anybody to take care of you unless you provide them with a service. In other words, they will need to enslave you to take care of you. And so far, you've been dependent on the corporate state. But I say, let's bring back individual masters with whips, because if there's one thing that really teaches in life, it's severe beatings. And this is what I'm in favor of for the majority of these young people. Now, Daryl Bassarab is an example of this. He's older than most of these tradies who are whining, but he has been whining consistently for almost 15 years now. And he has been going downhill to a point where he has nothing. He takes care of his elderly grandmother. He has no income whatsoever. He has no capability of income, and he intentionally portrays himself as an adult baby. And he wants to go back and start over with life, but there's no starting over. So you can pretend to be a kid all you want. You can't go back, and nobody except your own family is going to baby you like that. And so it's a very interesting concept. Daryl was like the first of his kind. Now they're everywhere in society. And, years ago he was in IT, and this was before we found out that IT was a total sham. It's like in the 90s, maybe they had IT, but they haven't had IT since the 90s. So, at one point when Daryl was down bad, because he's been consistently down bad for 15 years, I offered him money to build me a website. And he really didn't actively demur, but he was non-committal about it. And there's a reason for that. I found out later. He went to college for years and did all this stuff, and he can't actually build a website, which I would think is bottom tier level criteria for being in IT. Being able to construct a simple website and, independent of using web tools or whatever, you should have your own software or whatever for building unique custom websites. Now, I realize not many people want websites anymore, and that's kind of old hat, but I just thought I'd offer him some money to do something constructive on the web. Turns out he's never done anything constructive on the web. That's why he really doesn't have a job, and that's why IT can be done by a subhuman with an IQ of 73. It's not a real job. It never has been. It never will be. But I didn't understand that because I'm not versed in IT, and I knew nothing about IT until I figured this out. I intentionally kind of avoided learning anything about IT because I suspected this was the case. But this is the case with a lot of tradesmen. They do the bare minimum of education. They don't continue with advanced education. So they hit a wall, literally. They make no attempt to maintain their bodies, and they don't understand, like everybody else in their generation, that life is war and violence is returning to society and resources are not infinite. That means we all have to compete in a not so easy fashion for a limited number of resources. So you thought the internet with corn or porn and corn syrup was infinite, but it's not. It's very limited, and porn and corn syrup seem endless, but porn and corn syrup are not a big part of life in general. There's only a limited supply of lumber in the world. There's only a limited supply of resources in general, regardless of what trade you're in, and there's only a limited number of clients in the world who can pay you, and you have to get out ahead of the other guy. You can't just pretend you're a millennial and compete with yourself or whatever. You have to compete with the competition, and you have to crush your enemies and listen to the lamentation of their women. That's just life. Now, if you want to get ahead. And so these guys who fail to realize it, we're in that interim period before they are actively enslaved by the people who do get it. And that's the problem. We have to put up with people like Daryl walking around who are special, basically made themselves special needs through their helplessness, their learned patterns of helplessness.